meeting to order. If we could stand and pay our respect to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The agenda says special meeting, but it's not a special meeting. This is a regular meeting.
Yeah.
We'll just strike that off there. I'll note the roll that have been informed that Board Member Walters will not be with us tonight. Okay, sorry. Back onto the agenda there. We're going to strike special meeting. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
No.
If not, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
That was moved and supported with the one change. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move to item 5A, which is the approval of minutes. The first set of minutes we have is October 9th, 2017. Those were discussed at the previous meeting with some changes.
Make a motion we approve the Monday, October 9th, 2017 meeting minutes.
Second.
For discussion, the minutes, or the corrected minutes I have don't have the previous version of the changes on them. Is that correct?
What's that?
And I'm just confirming that the minutes that I had received there for October 9th don't have the original wording on them. It's just corrected.
Yes.
Okay, the law requires the original set of minutes to be on there with strike-throughs and changes. All edits should be on there. So anything that was on the previously submitted minutes should be either struck through or edited so that the original version and the corrected version are on the copy that we would approve tonight. And that is in the state statute. It does require that. It says the minutes shall be marked that way.
What changes do we still need to make? Because I know that
you're supposed to take the original version and strike through any words that you're replacing and add any words that are being added to it so that you have the second iteration of that same document.
Okay.
And that's how they're supposed to look.
Which this second page is all the
Well, the
notes.
second page does it doesn't say what it is, and that it's permanently attached to the October 9th minutes. And the October 9th minutes appear that that's the way they were first written. I mean, the law is really clear, and I can look it up. I've said it before, it's word for word. The minutes are supposed to show the original version with any changes. So any changes made along the line keep getting made to the original document so people will have a history of the changes of that document. Because there's multiple versions of October 9th minutes, and none of them are dated. I can pull up that copy of the law. I know I presented it to members before, but I have been told it's correct.
We have an audience member with his hand up out there.
I'm Joe Ferrari, 947 Gibson. Minutes are just draft documents. You guys can change them anytime you want until they're off the board. The ZBA approved the minutes, and then you want to change them. Callie's correct. But right now, everything's a draft. You got minutes that say, Santa Claus is coming to town. As long as you don't adopt them, they're nothing. Now, if you change it to say, not Santa Claus is coming on, we make a motion, blah, 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 that's your record. Now, if they've not been approved yet, everything's draft. That's why you bring it here, to correct it. And then when you correct it, if everybody's in agreement, a majority of you, that's when you adopt your minutes. Otherwise, if you went by that philosophy, you'd never get anything done. You'd be correcting and recorrecting and drafting and redrafting. You'd never get off the hamster wheel.
I respectfully disagree. I've asked multiple experts, including the attorney on this, and I've been told verbatim that whatever's presented to this board is an official document. Once you change that document, you have to show that document with all the edits on it.
We've never done it.
You might have not, I can read you word
Never.
for word what the law says.
Yeah,
and it
but I
applies to
think it's
everything that's
interpretation of the law.
Pardon?
I think it's an interpretation,
It's not. Would you like to look? I'll look it up.
you know, because like I said, when it's a document, and we can get caught in minutia all we want.
It's not minutia.
When you get a document, you can revise
The
it
Open Meetings Act
as you want.
specifies how the minutes are to be done.
Right.
And it says any change from the minutes. These minutes were presented to this board.
Yeah, but you didn't adopt them, correct? Or you did?
They were not adopted, no.
They were not adopted.
They weren't
No.
adopted, right? You guys,
Correct.
you're not changing the adopted version, right?
No.
Correct,
This is just a draft version.
correct.
Each draft.
And you,
Each draft of those minutes, it's a public document, needs to show the edits.
We've never done that on any
No.
changes, corrections, spelling errors, things of that nature.
25
I
years,
can't
I've never
recall
done it.
We've ever had a strike-through on an official one. I can't recall.
You have every the and but and if, and, I mean, I think it's more efficient to do it that way. I mean, if you guys want to change it and then change it from there, Kelly's correct. You'd have to put strike through.
I even posed this question to the Planning Institute, the Michigan Land Use Institute, exactly this scenario. And they said in writing, and you can look it up, the process of doing it. So when it comes in front of the board, if we have proposed changes, those changes are to be brought back in a document at the next meeting showing the original version presented to us with the changes so that we can see the original version presented
Okay.
along with the changes that we requested to know if it was done as we said.
Yeah, but the changed document is the one you should be looking at. That's the one you should be adopting. Whatever changed document, not both sets.
We're adopting or approving a
Madam-
final set.
Madam
That
Chair,
final set needs to show the original version.
It's never happened. Not in my 25 years. And I've been on the ZBA for, I think it was 6 or 7 years. Never happened. I mean, I understand the theory, but otherwise, I mean, government's inefficient now. You'd never get off the hamster wheel.
It's nothing to do with the hamster wheel. It's proper procedure for handling documents.
in the interest of moving this along, maybe we can table this for the next meeting. I rescind my support.
I'm sorry?
I rescind my support.
It hasn't changed. It's just already been addressed with the clerk.
Well, it's going to have to wait for next meeting.
Set that aside. We can discuss it at the end of the meeting if you want to bring it back
Okay.
up at that point. Because I can actually just cite the statute. You guys can listen to the wording and decide how it applies. I think that would be fair.
Fair enough.
December 11th, meeting minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the December 11th, 2017 ZBA minutes.
Support.
Just for the record, for this meeting, we did have, Deanna spoke at that meeting. It's not indicated on the set that I have. I think if somebody gets up and speaks, it should be indicated on the record.
Where does that need to be, you think?
It happened,
It was between procedure, communication, bylaws, and board member comments, which we didn't have board member comments.
right, but it was right at that point.
So do we just want to add discussion with Deanna and note that, or we don't need it word for word?
No, I don't need it
Okay.
word for word. I just, if somebody comes up to the podium and spoke, it should be indicated that, Deanna, Cushing came to the podium and discussed creation of the agenda and procedures, meeting procedures. I'd be happy with that.
So I will amend my motion to include after procedures communication, which I believe is spelled wrong. I just noticed the word communication is spelled wrong. And bylaws, stating that Deanna Cushing spoke to the ZBA about the creation of the agenda and meeting procedures.
Do you amend your support?
Re-support. Yes.
Okay. That was moved and supported. Any other comments?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, we're moving on to item 6 on our agenda, which is public comments on items not on tonight's agenda. If anybody would like to speak on an issue that's not on tonight's agenda, this would be the time. You'll be afforded time to speak on any agenda items when they come up. Nobody wishing to come forward? We will close that and move on to item 7, regular business. 7A is election of officers. We'll start with chairperson.
I move to nominate James Butler for chairperson.
I would support that.
I was moved and supported. Are there any further nominations? With that, we will cast a unanimous ballot for the election of chairperson as James Butler, and he will take it over. Do you want to switch, or do you just swap? Just can't.
The gavel will
The
call it a
passing
day.
of the gavel will
Call it a
go.
day.
Here we go.
Next item on the agenda is under 7A again, the nominations for vice chairman.
I nominate Corey Bailey for vice chairperson. Second.
Second.
You've been on it here, right?
Yeah, almost 2.
Yep. Time flies. Just we don't.
When you're having fun.
Any other motion? Any other nominations? Seeing none, we will cast a ballot of unanimously approving Corey Bailey as Vice Chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Moving on to election of Secretary, accepting nominations for Secretary of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I would
Mr. Bailey.
nominate Margie Payne for Secretary.
Second. Any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll cast a unanimous approval for Secretary for Margie Payne. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Moving on. Don't be so enthusiastic. Moving on to 7B, ZBA 009.17814 Vivian Lane, parcel number 0405276007. As you recall, this item was postponed from our last meeting. What I would like to do is have the applicant come up and refresh our memory on that and add any information he would like to related to his request.
I appreciate that, James. As you know, I was here last month and we ran into a situation. I'm requesting a variance for a garage. I have a 2.2 acre lot at a cul-de-sac, at the end of a cul-de-sac. I came in front of the board with 5 neighbors who abut my property and have no problem at all with the garage being built as proposed. I have one neighbor down the street which sent a letter to the board that was read in the last meeting. This neighbor's property doesn't abut my property, it's down the street, and that neighbor never passes my property. I've got some pictures I'd like to show you of the property in front of my house, showing her house and my house and that type of thing, if that's okay. I brought one other picture with me tonight, which I'd like to share with the board. I've got one for everyone. And basically, it's a picture that I didn't have last time. It shows the front of the house and kind of is the bottom line when you look at what I'm requesting.
Yeah, please.
One, two, three, one, three, four.
Thank you. Make sure the recording secretary gets one.
When we're discussing this, I think it might make a lot more sense. I apologize, I didn't have that for you last month. And the reason I'm here a second time, as you all know, is because we ran into a situation where the tax record and the builder's record and I think someone, when they went out to check the stakes, came up with another set of numbers, so we had varying numbers as to what the square footage of the residence was. So that has been supplied. I think everybody has a copy of that now?
Yes.
Okay. The picture that I gave you shows a picture of the house from the front. It is taken from a drone, so it's up high. If you'll notice on the top picture, that's an actual photograph, and it shows the shed in the back of my property. The house is about 50 feet from the road, and the shed is 150 feet from the road. The proposed garage would go where the shed goes, so the proposed garage would be 152 feet from the road. Okay? From a drone, it's easy to see. Keep in mind that the shed and the proposed garage are down about 6 feet below the level of the driveway, at the top of the driveway there. Okay?
Okay.
Notice also in the picture the trees along the right-hand side, which go along M24, the trees in the back of the property. On the left side of the picture, there's another row of trees that's underneath the power lines. And then the only neighbor that can really see the proposed garage would be the neighbor on Alex, one neighbor up on Alex that would be able to look down on my garage, especially in the wintertime. But in the summertime, their view is kind of broken from the trees as well. Now, I've showed this to a number of people, and not that, you know, we take other people's view, but everybody I've showed this to said, what's the big deal? You know, why are you in front of the zoning variance or the zoning board? It appears to me that the garage actually improves the look of the property, and that's kind of the point I was trying to get across last time. But obviously, I got blindsided last week. I didn't realize we had a neighbor that was going to send a letter to the board and object. Again, we had 5 neighbors that abut my property and had no problem with the garage whatsoever. And then I have one neighbor that objects to the property. Can I?
Yes, sir. Please.
I've only got one picture of this, but I can pass that down. What it shows is my property on the left-hand side, and the neighbor that objected to the garage on the right-hand side of the picture. And as you can see, taken from where that neighbor turns into their driveway, you can't see the shed, and you wouldn't be able to see the garage at all from their property. Literally driving to their property, in their driveway, in their garage, in their house, driving out of their driveway, they wouldn't be able to see the proposed garage whatsoever. I've got a couple more pictures to support that. Here's a picture from the bottom of my driveway looking towards her house. And as you can see, her house, the garage faces my property, and they have absolutely no windows on their side of the house. So they couldn't even look out of a window and see the garage. And one final one here. Bird's eye view looking down. There's the proposed garage at the top. There's our house on the left, and then there's her house down here. And you can see that her view is blocked by a row of trees on her property. My neighbor's house blocks it 100% also. And then I have a row of pine trees there which block the view. So she's blocked from seeing the garage 3 times, 100% of the time. Now, the neighbor that opposed this too, I never met. I never knew before this issue came up. She's down the street. We've lived there a year, and I've just never had the opportunity to meet her, so I don't know what her objections are. And I brought that first picture in for everyone just to see that. I think, and everybody that I've talked to thinks that it actually improves the property as opposed to detracting from the property. Now, with the square footage narrowed down, basically, by the zoning, I'm allowed about 1,100 feet. My variance was for 624 feet. So the difference of a little more than 500 feet would be the equivalent of a two-car garage. And where that two-car garage would go is essentially away from the road, back where I have, nobody can see it, and I have another 400 feet to the back of my property. Okay? So from the road, the garage would look attractive, and it would look just like every other garage. Now, on my original variance request, I had two garage doors in the front. And I've, in consideration of the neighbor and the neighborhood, what I'd like to do is request the variance be approved, but with the garage doors on the side so that nobody would see the garage doors open. In the front, the garage would match the house, basically with two windows and shutters, just like the house, the same color and everything.
Any members of the board have questions and comments for the applicant?
No.
Mr. Bailey, no? Ms. Rosner?
You got the information from the planner, from the planner?
Yeah, you did receive the letters from Carlisle
Yes.
Wortman
You
dated
should have,
December the 18th. There was a letter they had written. Had you received a copy of that?
from,
Carlisle Wortman Associates, our
No.
consulting planner?
No.
After the meeting, I had emailed our planner
okay,
the information that we discussed that night with the inconsistencies of
okay,
how do we measure inside, outside,
Right.
outside.
okay.
And so I had detailed all that information. The planner used that and did another analysis
Okay.
of that. So I think we need to provide him a copy of that. I thought that he would have gotten
Yeah, I thought he would have as well.
that. You know what? I have a clean copy that.
Yeah, I don't have a clean copy.
No.
I have one final thing, if I could.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. While everybody's
We'll
looking
need a
at it.
couple minutes to review it.
Obviously, when I came to the board meeting last month, I had no idea that any neighbor was objecting, and that's the last thing I want to do. Obviously, we've only been there a year, and we don't want to create any hard feelings. So, in consideration of the neighborhood and the neighbor, what I would like to do is, I would like to continue my request for the garages proposed, basically the equivalent of two-car garage, more than what I'm allowed. But if the board decides to say no to that, I could live with, I'd like to propose a lesser variance. Basically, I would be willing to, in addition to moving the garage doors from the front of the garage, take 4 feet off of the front of the garage. So it would be what you'd see from the road would be no bigger than any other two-car garage on the street. The 4 feet would be taken off the length of the building. Again, I would move the garage doors from the front to the side, so no one would see the garage doors open at any time except us. That would reduce the square footage of the variance that I'm requesting to approximately a one-car garage. So basically, a one-car garage, which would, again, be at the back of the garage, if you would, almost 200 feet from the road.
Anything else?
So, again, I'd like to build the garage I'd like to build.
Sure.
I don't really want to have to put an addition on the house, and then obviously I'd be approved because I'd have plenty of living space. That would be a real problem for us to go through that. It would delay everything and force us to keep our garage items in storage. So I'd request the original zoning variance that I requested, but if you decide that it's still a no on that, I would plead that the lesser variance request be approved. With that, I won't take up any more time. I know you,
No problem.
I know you got a busy meeting tonight.
Other questions, comments from board members? I do have the letter. Did I give you a copy of that? Nope, here it is.
Okay.
Here's a letter dated December 18th from Carlisle Wortman for you to review. So. Mr. Bailey, any comments? No?
We have that other letter from the neighbor.
We do have that, and we'll read that. We'll read that into the record. Question for the applicant. And
Yes.
I know in Carlisle Wortman's letter, there are two documents that are attached to it. One being a letter or a memo from Galley Construction dated 1/4/18. In this, it puts out two areas of the garage, which is in conflict with information we've seen previously.
What is that, sir?
It says in the existing principal dwelling consists of 1,618.125 square feet, and then of living space, and then 600 square feet of garage. Then I turn the page, and I have this diagram.
Mm-hmm.
Did you prepare that?
Yes.
Okay, well,
That's the actual dimensions to the inches.
okay, so I'm assuming what is in the Galley memorandum, which is not consistent with this.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming this would be the correct one?
I don't actually agree with my builder there. My builder claims the garage is 600 feet.
Yeah.
Normally, from what I've seen, when they subtract a garage, they subtract the interior of the garage because it could have 1, 2, or 3 walls that are common with the rest of the house.
Right.
I only have one wall, and that might be the disparity in the numbers.
Okay, I just
But
want
I
to,
don't have any trouble with you going to my builder's numbers, who are more than mine, as far as the garage.
I'm just looking at to make sure the record's correct.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we have the correct data that we're all working from. There are different numbers that are in that letter you'll see from Carlisle Wortman.
I looked on the internet at different communities, and different communities do it differently, so I don't know.
Yeah, and you'll read through the letter done by our planner, and
Basically, the letter, if we just boil the numbers down, the letter says, the amended report from the planners is that the variance would be 574
yes,
square feet.
574, but that's based on a building. And the garage, obviously, is the garage at 1,624 square feet. That's the detached garage, what he's proposing. The dwelling, what they have in the Carlisle letter, is 1,675 square feet. And if I look, and my math is correct, he has 1,638 square feet, based on this document. So, I'm assuming that would be the baseline. I don't think Mr. Carlisle went out and measured the building.
Right.
So if we say it's 1,638 square feet is the principal resident. Okay, and then in this diagram, they reference a area of 554.2 square feet for the garage.
That would be the interior.
That would be the interior. So I'm just trying to follow the same format that Carlisle Wortman did to come to their variance number. Okay? So in doing so, if you follow their same mathematics, taking the dwelling area minus other areas, you get a variance of 558.375 square feet. 558,375.375. That's what the request is, based on this. So, just want to make sure that we're talking about the same things. Yes.
Looking at that, I went through our ordinance. Part of this is being some ordinance review, and, when I looked at all the components of this is kind of what prompted me to email the planner and ask him to take another look at it. The petitioner had originally said that the floor area was 2,300 square feet, and the garage was 625 square feet. The planner had said the dwelling was 1,624 square feet and a 480 square foot attached garage. So we had determined at the last meeting that just a lot of the numbers just
Right.
weren't matching through nobody's fault, just the information we had brought forward. So the confusion started for me was whether the 1,624 square foot calculation the planner gave included the garage. And we also had the unresolved question last time as to the calculation of the total floor area of the main dwelling, as specified in Article 6.2. Another issue we had is how the square foot is calculated and compared, inside dimensions or outside dimensions, and making sure we're consistent and not using inside dimensions for one and outside dimensions for the other. So it all boiled down to whether or not an attached garage is included in the total floor area of the main dwelling and ensuring that we were being consistent. So that was really what prompted us to have to come forward and back today.
Sure.
So then I went through with the planner and we looked at a lot of these definitions. Accessory buildings and structures. Basically, it says accessory buildings and structures which are attached to the principal building shall be considered a part of the principal building. The total floor area of all attached and detached or accessory buildings shall not exceed the total floor area of the main dwelling. So it says that the garage shall be considered as part of the principal building. We keep going through that none of the definitions directly matched one another in doing it. And then in our definitions, it says a supplementary building or structure on the same lot or parcel of land as the principal building or buildings or part of the principal building occupied or devoted exclusively to accessory use. So that's what they defined as an accessory building. So that attached garage is that accessory building. And it said that the building area is defined as the total area taken on a horizontal plane of the principal building and accessory buildings. So total building area would include the garage. And then they give another definition of the dwelling or dwelling unit. And then there's a definition of gross floor area, which contradicts the previous definitions. And so we kind of circled around the issue a whole bunch of times, which is where that planner came up with the amended number. But basically, in our ordinance, we have no clear answer to the questions that we were asking last time. And so that is our best analysis based on all of the intent of the ordinance on what.
That's why I've tended to use approximately or about.
Right.
I mean,
One says it is part of the attached and you include it, and one says
Right.
it isn't. So in putting it all together with what we thought the clear intent was, that's what we came up with. And I think we're all in agreement basically on that, just give or take square feet. So the planner was saying 574 square feet, and the petitioner's asking for, are we at 558?
558.
Yeah, square feet. So we're all right in the same window now.
Any other comments, questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, 7:35, I'd like to open the public hearing for anyone from the public who's interested in coming up and speaking on this item. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and move on to board member comments, or move on to building administrator comments. Obviously, we've got our letter from Carlisle Wortman that's in there. I think we probably need to read into the record that letter from the adjacent property owner. It's dated 1/8/18. So would the secretary be so kind to read that in, or
I'm sorry. What am I supposed to be reading?
we can receive this there?
Oh, yes. To the Zoning Board of Appeals, dated 1/8/18. This letter is being sent to you because I am unable to attend the meeting tonight. I wish you to consider the items listed below in addition to my concerns submitted for the last board meeting on 12/11/17. I'm a neighboring resident on Vivian Lane, and I still oppose the building of the proposed detached garage on 814 Vivian Lane. This is a single-family residential neighborhood and not a rural property. I do not feel that this proposed building will increase my property value. I feel not maintaining the zoning ordinance, section 6.2.f and section 1.4.c for total floor area allowed in an R3 zoning district will hurt my property value and the atmosphere of the neighborhood. I am sorry the petitioner bought a home that did not fill his need requirements, but do not feel that my property value should be risked. Note, I was unable to view the meeting of 12/11/17 on YouTube or to obtain the minutes from the meeting. The meeting was not listed on the Zoning Information and Board of Appeals page, ZBA minutes and agendas. I wish to obtain information in the number of residents that the petitioner stated were not opposed to his garage request. Please consider that 11 property owners are within 300 feet of the petitioner, and the approvals are only the petitioner's word. After review of the document completed by Galley Construction, these are my points of concern. The property owner of 814 Vivian stated that he is a retired engineer. Does he know Galley Construction personally? 814 is an irregular lot at the end of the street, but due to the curve of the court, the proposed building will be visible from my home and from the street. Two sides of the proposed building face toward the highway, but I do not see how this will control highway noise. The longest side of the building faces the neighbor's lot, not the highway directly, and the neighbor has a berm lined with arborvitaes that go past the distance of the proposed building. The back of the building faces the owner's empty lot, not the highway directly, and appears to be over 100 foot from the actual highway. The proposed building will be in direct line of sight from the adjacent lots and from the homes of the non-adjacent neighbors. Due to the angle of the lot, the additional square footage will be visible even if added to the depth of the building. If the proposed building is 6 foot lower than the street, the view will be even worse. If the owner plans on storing vehicles that will not fit into his attached garage due to low overhead clearance, then the height of the proposed building adds more concern. How does the owner plan on getting the vehicles down the 6-foot drop going back to the proposed building? I do not feel this proposed building will increase my property value. After review of the document completed by Matt Lonerstar, planner's additional analysis of the requested dimensional variance at 814 Vivian Lane, zoned R3, these are my points of concern. That the petitioner states that the existing dwelling is actually 1,675 square foot in area. For this review, they chose to utilize the petitioner's dimensions. Are they accurate? Please maintain this ordinance and do not allow the variance. Section 1.4.c states, where a condition imposed by a provision of this ordinance upon the use of a lot, building, or structure is conflicting with a condition imposed by any other provision of this ordinance or by the provision of an ordinance adopted under any other law, the provision which is more restrictive shall govern. Section 6.2.f is stricter than Section 6.2.d in that it restricts that what can be included within total floor area calculations. Therefore, they concluded that attached garages shall be excluded from the calculations for the total gross floor area of a dwelling, and based upon the petitioner's provided dimension, 574 square foot dimensional variance is required for the proposed detached garage. Please consider all my concerns as a property owner and resident of Oxford since 1993. Please notify me of your decision to allow or disallow this proposed structure. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Judy Beaver, 802 Vivian Lane.
Thank you. Moving on to any board member questions, comments based on anything you've heard, seen? Okay. With that, we'll move on to our finding of fact pursuant to 17.8C of the zoning ordinance. In reviewing the request for variance, the following standards shall be determining practical difficulties shall be considered, with no single factor being determinative. Number one, strict compliance with restrictions governing area, setback, frontage, height, bulk, density, or other non-use manners will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or render ordinance conformity unnecessary burdensome. Mr. Bailey, thoughts?
I don't agree with that. I don't think it'll make it unnecessarily burdensome, considering the size of garage that would be allowed without a variance. I don't think this makes it unnecessarily burdensome.
Roger Myers, any comments?
I'm on the fence. It's not unnecessarily burdensome. I think there's some other factors here. Kind of neutral on that one.
I don't think it makes it unnecessarily burdensome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it does either. Moving on. Number two, the variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well to other property owners. Mr. Bailey?
I disagree with that. It'll do justice to the applicant, but I don't see how this is going to benefit the property owners at all.
Again, taken in a whole with the size of the property and being unique. And this garage would be allowed if the house was
Can you
bigger.
put your mic up there, guy?
I'm sorry, and the fact that this garage in that size would be allowed if the house was bigger. I mean, that the garage size is really just a factor of the house tie-in. I think by being able to put the things inside as opposed to outside or putting up temporary covers, which he could do, that actually this would benefit both.
I do not agree. I don't think it'll benefit the neighbors or anyone else other than the petitioner.
I agree with that. I think, obviously it's going to do its justice to the applicant. I don't know what benefit it really would be to the adjacent property owners. Moving on, number three, a lesser variance than requested will not give substantial relief to the applicant and will not be more consistent with justice to other property owners. Mr. Bailey?
I think the lesser variance he requested would, I don't know that it would give substantial relief, but again, I don't see how this does anything for the property owners. I think this is strictly the applicant. So I don't see how that one applies either.
Board Member Rosner Myers. Comments?
Yeah, looking at the requested lesser variance, I mean, it certainly moves in the direction of a smaller garage, so it would be 300 square feet, basically 10 foot wider on an average garage tub than what he'd be allowed based on the square footage of the house. I mean, I think it's certainly moves in the right direction, but then again, I still don't. I don't see that not allowing this in this case would be beneficial. But I just, I keep going back to, he could put up temporary shelters without permits and things like that to take some things out of the garage to bring the vehicles in, and that somebody moving next door with a bigger house could put up that size garage. With the size of the property being the unique factor, that's where I'm tying in. It's not, in this case, it's not like he's putting a big garage on a small lot where it's all congested. I'm just taking the whole picture as a whole for this one isolated case. And would it really throw off the look or character of the neighborhood? And I couldn't say that it would. I wouldn't think it would. I still think it would be an improvement. I think it would raise the value overall. I just don't see it being a hindrance to an adjoining neighbor who could actually have that size garage. That's where it's a really sticky one for me, and that's where I keep having my problem with this.
Good enough.
I agree with Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, I do like the fact that he did brought forward a lesser variance. You know, it does reduce the size of it, the reconfiguration of the doors, so they're not facing the street. That is encouraging. I just still think it's just too big. That's just my opinion. Moving on, the need for the variance is due to the unique circumstance peculiar to the property and not generally applicable to in the area or to other properties in the same zoning district. Board Member Bailey, comments?
Don't see that applies.
Board Member Rosner Myers.
In this one, I do see it applies. This property that he houses is considerably larger than the surrounding properties. And it would actually fall into different zoning if it was based on the actual size of the lot. So to me, that was the primary factor in looking at this, is that the size of the property is quite large compared to the neighboring properties around it. And that's really what slanted me to see that. I just didn't think it was unreasonable in light of all the factors tied together.
Okay. Board Member.
I agree.
One could make a case that it is a larger lot. I don't know if that's a unique circumstance to the property. I don't see that's the overriding thing in my mind. Finally, number 5, the problem and the resulting need for the variance has not been self-created by the applicant and or the applicant's predecessors. Board Member Bailey.
No, this is self-created by the applicant.
Board Member Rosner Myers. Comments?
Well, it was self-created, I guess, by the previous, whoever built the house, and the house was bigger, they wouldn't need the variance for the garage. So, in that part, it's self-created.
It's self-created.
And I would agree with that. I think it is self-created. So, those are our findings of fact. At this time, I will entertain a motion on this matter.
I move to deny the variance for 814 Vivian Lane.
I would support that.
Would the maker of the motion add to that based on our findings of fact and discussion?
Yes, I will.
Continue to support, Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a roll call.
Go ahead.
Oh, is that
You.
something I have to do?
Yes, you have to do that.
Butler,
Yes.
Rosner Myers,
For the reasons stated before, I would vote no.
Bailey,
Yes.
Payne, yes. Motion carries.
So the variance request has been denied by the ZBA.
Do we require 4 or 3?
3. Under,
Is it 2/3?
It's majority.
I know this has come up and it's been so long. When it was 7, it was a lot easier math.
on the 3 or 4 is 75.
What was it?
You need 3 for a quorum.
Not quorum of ZBA action needs 2/3, right?
3 or 4 is 75.
It's 4 what?
3/4 is 75 last time I checked, right?
Correct.
Is 75
percent. 6.66 is 2/3, right?
Right.
Quorum shall consist of 3 members, and any action requires 3 concurring votes.
Okay.
There you go.
Just want to make sure that
Yep.
Thank you.
procedural don't
Section
come
A.
back.
Appreciate that. All right, moving on to item 7C, ZBA 001.18. This is for 803 Olive Street, parcel 0426352002. The applicant, James Brzezinski, thank you. Address is the same, 803 Olive Street. Subject property is located in an R1 zoning district, located on the north side of West Drainer Road between Gillespie and Olive Street. Approval of this application as submitted would require a variance according to zoning ordinance 67A, Article 7 or 3.7, Schedule of Regulations, and Article 6.21, Accessory Buildings, Structures, swimming pools. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
If you would be so kind to state your name and address and what your request is.
James Brzezinski, 803 Olive, Oxford. My request is for a variant to proceed with a redeeding of property that was brought before the board to a dispute on a property line. That the only holdup is the pool deck that I have to the proposed property line is less than the original 10-foot clearance. None of the surrounding property owners object to it, and the additional property that I would receive from the neighbor to my north that would affect this did not object either. So it's to proceed with a already basically approved additional deeding of property to correct a property line that has been incorrect since 1940 and a fence that has been installed in 1963, and there's been 4 owners, and myself included, that have never been in dispute of the fence line. But the new property owner, once they purchased the property, later disputed the property, but then agreed to deed me to the new property line. But because the pool deck that was built with the assumption of the prior property line was under the 10-foot. So we're asking for a variant to proceed, be under the 10-foot, and have that variant, and then proceed with the additional deeding of property.
Thank you. Any questions from board members related to this item?
No.
No? So essentially what we're looking at is a variance of 2.7 feet on the north to allow for this. Obviously, the triangular-shaped piece of property that's shaded on the Houston Kennedy survey, which is included, is the area that's being deeded from the property owner to the north. I believe that setback that would be remaining for the property to the north would still comply with side yard setback. It'd be 10.3 feet. No questions. We'll move on to the opening the public hearing. It is now 7:55, and I'll open the public hearing for anyone who wants to speak on this matter. Seeing none, we will close that and move on to comments, board member comments and questions. We do have a letter from Carlisle Wortman, and that's dated December 15th. 2017. Again, just to pretty much reiterates what the applicant has told us. There is a request for a variance of 2.7 feet on the north property line to rectify this situation. Moving on to our findings of fact pursuant to Article 17.8C. In reviewing the request for the variance, the following standards for determining the practical difficulty shall be considered with no single factor being determinative. Number one, strict compliance with restrictions governing area, width, setback, frontage, height, density, and other non-use matters will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or render ordinance conformity unnecessarily burdensome. Board member comments? Mr. Bailey, comments?
Yeah, I think it's going to make it a little tough considering the pool is already in place, the fence is already in place, and it would make it a little tough.
Board member Rosner Myers.
I'm assuming these things were permitted at some point.
One would think it would have been. One would hope.
Assuming, we haven't been provided any information that said this was done in a way other than the standard procedures. So it seems, in light of an error at some point along the line, then strict conformance would certainly be unnecessarily burdensome. I also really appreciate the way the neighbors work together to try and minimize it by, deeding property. I thought that was really great to see, so. I believe it would be unnecessarily burdensome given the facts that we've been presented here.
I would agree. I would say probably more than one error was made in this whole mess, but yeah, I would agree.
Who was in charge of this in 1943?
I say we fire them.
I agree. I do believe that this standard does apply. I will echo the comments of Board Member Rosner Myers related to the fact that the property owners working together, that's always a good thing to make that happen. Moving on, the variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners.
I think this applies.
I agree as well. Number three, the lesser variance than request will not give substantial relief to the applicant and will not be more consistent with justice to other property owners. Board member comments?
I don't know how you can do a lesser variance.
I think that transfer of the property really amounted to that lesser variance. They took something and already minimized it, so.
Well, the only thing you can do if to make it a lesser variance is to make it exactly 10 feet on them, but you'd have to reconfigure property even worse.
Balance on the other side.
3/10 of a foot's really not going to change the difference.
To make it work, a lesser one.
Moving on, the need for the variance is due to unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not generally applicable in the area or to other property owners in the same zoning district. Board member comments?
I would say this applies.
Given my previous comments, I would say that would certainly apply here.
Yeah, I would agree it would apply. I mean, these are unique circumstances related to this piece of property. And finally, the need for the problem and the resulting need for the variance has not been self-created by the applicant or the applicant's predecessors. Board member comments?
Depends on how many predecessors we go back, but yeah, I would say this applies.
Board member Rosner Myers?
Again, assuming this was done in the orderly fashion, it certainly wouldn't have been self-created.
Right.
And given what's presented to us and the information provided, I mean, there is a historical dialogue of what occurred and how it occurred, and it seems one would say that everyone followed the rules, and not until somebody goes by the property next door realizes there's an issue, so. All right. At this time, I will entertain a motion on this matter.
In the matter of ZBA 001.18, 803 Olive Street, parcel 0426-352-002. Based on our finding of fact, I move to approve a 2.7-foot variance to this property.
Second.
Would the maker of the motion entertain making that the north property line?
North property line, correct.
Bailey?
Oh, you support that?
Yeah.
You can support that change?
Support.
There's a change to it. Any other discussion?
Would they consider just to also reference the documents as presented and have that tied then to the official record? So
Yes.
that overlay and the dimensions draw on here for future reference so that we actually have something, I guess a map or a guide to go by in the future.
Based on drawing by Mr. Wortman,
Yeah, to include that in the.
to include the drawing by Carlisle Wortman.
Yes.
Yes, I would add that to the motion.
And I will re-support.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call.
Bailey?
Yes.
Rosner Myers?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes,
Payne, yes. Motion carries.
motion carries. Moving on, item 7D, ZBA 002.18, 1758. North Baldwin Road, parcel number 04-18-100-038, applicant Charter Township of Oxford, and homeowner Raymond Weir III. Subject parcel is located in R3 Single Family Zoning District, located on the east side of North Baldwin Road, south of Hummer Lake Road, and north of Granger Road. Approval of this application as submitted would require a variance in accordance with zoning ordinance 67A, Article 3.7, Schedule of Regulations.
Good evening, board members. I'm Joe Ferrari, Oxford Township Treasurer, representing the township in this matter. Hopefully, I presented a memo that hopefully was clear enough for you guys in the packet, kind of explain where we're at and how come we're in this situation, basically. Basically, for Mr. Weir and Mr. Hengst, they want access to that pond behind their properties. And the township purchased that property as part of the Elkview litigation, and this is a part that we'd like to deed that over to the homeowners, but they need a ZBA variance in order for that to happen. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain them.
Questions of Mr. Ferrari? Questions of the applicant? Anyone?
Does the pond is owned by the township?
Correct. This will allow each of the homeowners, once we deed them that property, to own part of the pond. As you imagine, we don't want the new person that buys that big piece also tell our homeowners, you can't use it anymore. I own it. We want to avoid that. I mean, they've been here for years, great neighbors. They've used it, thought that it was theirs. This will clear all that up. It's a win-win for everybody. They get access to the pond, and the township receives a little bit of financial remuneration to help offset those costs.
Mm-hmm.
So the variance request is for, obviously, the width to depth ratio.
For this one and the next one.
Okay. Any other comments, questions for the applicant?
Just other than the general procedures, the township is exempt from these requirements anyways. They're doing this as a courtesy request.
Do what?
You're doing it as a courtesy request. Generally, the township's exempt.
We always try to, and I think Bill sets a good tone with that.
Yes.
Follow every rule that everybody else we make other people follow.
Correct.
So, I mean, we're just not going to supersede everything, because if we make homeowner X do it, we're going to do it as well. That's the reason why we're doing it.
Very good. At this time, 8:05, I'd like to open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone with the public that would like to speak on this, please come forward. Yes, ma'am. If you would, for the record, state your name and address.
Kazar, Pamela Kazar.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. My son owns the property next door. I just want a clarification. They bought the parcel directly behind
If
it?
you would, through me, I'll ask the question. too.
Okay. I'm assuming they bought the parcel directly behind it?
We have a map.
Going
and
straight
I'll have
out?
you Come up.
Yeah, that's all. Okay, so they purchased right here. So this and then, okay. I just wanted clarification.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Anyone else from the public wishing to make a comment? Go back here. Seeing none, I'm sorry. Please come forward. If you would, state your name for the record.
Ray Weir, 1758.
Good evening.
I'm the one that, the township approached me with this, offer to purchase the property. We worked out a deal for it, as far as a purchase price and that, so I'm in favor of it. Hopefully the zoning board is as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ware. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 8:06. Moving on to, we do have a letter dated December the 22nd from our planning consultant related to this matter. There is a survey in the packet done by Houston Kennedy. There are descriptions that are included. There is a before and after map in here. Any questions, comments from this board?
Yeah.
Sure.
Are they buying into property into the pond? Is that allowed?
Yes.
Okay.
It's probably fine. They're buying those.
All right. I just didn't think you could own it into the water.
Yes, you can. Any other comments? See none, we'll move on to our findings of fact. And again, pursuant to 17.8C, that in reviewing the request for the variance, the following standards for determining practical difficulty shall be considered with no single factor being determinative. Strict compliance with restrictions regarding area setback, frontage, height, bulk, density, and other non-use matters will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or render ordinance conformity unnecessarily burdensome. Board member comments?
I think this applies.
Board member Rosner-Myers, any comments?
No, it definitely would be unnecessarily burdensome to not grant it.
I don't think it would be unnecessarily burdensome.
I would agree. I don't think it's unnecessarily burdensome related to this. But moving on, number 2, the variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to other property owners. Board member comments?
I think that applies.
I think it applies.
I as well. I think it applies. Item 3, lesser variance and request would not give substantial release to the applicant and will not be more consistent with justice to other property owners.
That also applies.
I believe it does apply as well. I don't know if there is a lesser variance in this particular matter, given the property dimensions and what's for sale. Do you want to create a parcel that's an orphan parcel that's cannot be used? Number 4, the need for the variance is due to unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not generally applicable in the area or to other properties in the same zoning district. Board member comments?
This applies.
Yeah, I agree it does apply. It is a unique circumstance. And finally, the problem and resulting need for the variance has not been self-created by the applicant or the applicant's predecessors. Again, I think this does apply. They certainly didn't create this circumstance. Any other comments?
No.
Moving on, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move that ZBA 002.18 for the property located at 1758 North Baldwin Road, for the property for the property to allow a variance for the deficiency in the yard size? Help me with the
It's the width to depth ratio.
We'd change it
It would be 3.73 to 1 versus the maximum of 3.5 to 1.
to allow a variance to allow.
Is it the right one?
Well, this one I think is a 4.7.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
4.7. I got the wrong one. Sorry. You're correct. You're correct. I'm sorry.
Do that if you can insert those.
I got the wrong application. Yep.
To allow that ratio, based on our discussion and findings of fact.
A motion, second,
I'll support that.
support. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll roll call. Vote, please.
Bailey?
Yes.
President Myers?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Kane, yes.
Moving on. Item 7E, ZBA 003.18, 1786 North Baldwin Road, parcel number 0418 100 036, applicant again, Township of Oxford, and the homeowner David and Sharon Hingus. Subject property is located in an R3 zoning district, located on the north side, or the east side of North Baldwin Road, south of Hummer Lake, north of Granger Road. Approval of this application as submitted would require a variance according to Ordinance 67A, Article 3.7, Schedule of Regulations.
Exact same concept as the last one. So I'm not going to repeat myself. It's the exact same theory.
Appreciate it. Any questions? None? At this time, I will open the floor for a public hearing. This is 8:12. Anyone from the public wishes to make any comments, please feel come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at this time. And again, we have a letter from our planner, Carlisle Warman, outlining everything. December 22nd, 2017 is the date of that. And the request is for with the depth ratio increase from 3.5 to 3.73. Moving on to our findings of fact. 17.8C, in reviewing the request for the variance, the following standards for determining practical difficulty shall be considered with no single factor being determinative. Strict compliance with restrictions regarding governing area, setback, frontage, height, bulk, density, and other non-use matters will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose or render ordinance conformity unnecessarily burdensome. Board member comments on this applicability?
They apply just like the last one.
Same.
I would agree. Moving on, the variance will do substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners. Believe that is
Yes.
it applies?
Yes.
3, the lesser variance and request would not give substantial lease to the applicant and will not be more consistent with justice to other property owners. Certainly would apply. The problem and the need, the need for the variance is due to particular unique circumstances peculiar to the property and not generally applicable in the area to other properties in the same zoning district.
It applies.
I believe it applies. It is a unique circumstance. And then finally, the problem and the resulting need for the variance has not been self-created by the applicant or the applicant's predecessors.
Correct.
I believe that certainly does apply as well. So, at this time, I will entertain a motion regarding this matter.
In the matter of ZBA 003.18, 1786 North Baldwin Road, parcel 0418 100 036, I move to approve a 3.73 to 1 depth to width ratio for this property based on our finding of fact and the survey done by Carlisle Wortman.
Second.
We have a motion and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Bailey?
Yes.
President Meyer?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes,
Kane, yes.
thank you.
Motion carries.
Moving on, at this time, item number 8, which is board member comments. Any comments for board members?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Payne.
Maybe a 3-minute recess if they want to leave at this point. So I feel like they for a minute recess.
You'd like a minute recess?
Pardon?
You would like a minute recess?
Not me, I'm just wondering.
If people want to stay, you can stay. If you want to leave, you can leave.
We had a conversation at the last meeting regarding the difference between postponing a meeting or an issue or tabling an issue, and so I did look at our bylaws. In Section 8 of our bylaws, it says, in the event that the applicant is not present or that insufficient or the sufficient data needed for the ZBA to take action has not been furnished, the ZBA shall table the matter until the applicant can be present or required information has been submitted. Such period shall not exceed 60 days from the date of the matter was first scheduled. So postponing or tabling is 60 days. I
think it's just semantics in the word table according to like meeting procedures and postpone. It really,
well, I
postpone,
postpone tabling, but yeah. So that's all I have to say.
But it did allow it, right? It allows us to
Table an issue, yes.
push off to a future meeting.
But tabling doesn't mean it has to come back during that same meeting. You've got 60 days to bring it back.
I guess just, that's what I'm saying, procedurally tabled generally means you handle it that meeting, postpone means indefinite, and it's just semantic in
Well,
terms of the.
by our bylaws, that's not what it means, though.
Right.
That's from the bylaws, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other board member comments?
Ed-
You said you had something you want to,
Well, just in relation to the minutes.
yes.
The Open Meetings Act, which is Act 267 of 1976. Section,
Kelly, Mike, talking to it.
pardon?
She wants you to talk into your mic.
Section 15.269 talks specifically about minutes. And I'll be happy to, pass this around. I don't want to have to read that whole paragraph. But three different places on here. This was from the Michigan Land Use Institute that talks about it. This was from the Attorney General's office about minutes and corrections to minutes. And this is the actual statute itself. It all says the same thing. And the reason is, once we have a meeting, the minutes have to be made available. The draft minutes have to be made available to the public within a certain amount of days. So people can come in and pick up those draft minutes. They're a public document. They exist, and they are the minutes. They're the draft minutes. It might not be the official minutes. It's the official draft minutes.
And if they get a copy, it would say draft, right?
Yes, and it
Across
says
it.
draft minutes,
Okay.
but those are the minutes. So,
Those are the unofficial minutes of the meeting.
yes, it's the minutes
Okay.
of the meeting.
The unofficial are not approved. They're not,
They
they're
are
n-
the minutes of the meeting. They're, once we have the final version, meaning all the edits are made, then they become official. Those are the meeting minutes, but they're not binding until they're approved. But those are the meeting minutes, so each public body shall keep minutes of the meeting showing the date, time, members present, etc., and all decisions made at the meeting. The purpose of the meeting, it shall include, and it talks about what it shall include. Minutes are public records. Those minutes, once they're existed, are a public record, once it's created. Open for inspection. The public body shall make the minutes of that meeting, and those are talking about what we're considering the draft, but those are the minutes. They shall make the minutes available at the address designated on the public notice pursuant, and those copies must be available for a reasonable estimated cost of printing and copying. The proposed minutes, as they're calling them, shall be available for inspection within 8 days after the meeting. The public body shall make approved minutes available for public inspection 5 days after the meeting at which the minutes are approved by the public body. Okay?
Okay.
And, give me one more sec. The public body shall make any corrections to the proposed minutes at the next meeting after the meeting which the minutes refer. The public body shall make corrected minutes available at or before the next subsequent meeting after correction. The corrected minutes shall show both the original entry and the correction. And I asked this question verbatim to the Land Use Institute and to multiple people, and they all said the same thing. You create the minutes. The minutes are given to the board for review. If they're adopted without any changes, then they become the official minutes. If there's any changes to them, when they come back, the document should show the original one with all the changes that were recommended at that meeting. And it has to show strike-throughs. It has to show the original version and the corrected version. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's exactly what it says in the law. And it's the flow. And it's because it's a public document, and it's because that set of minutes gets released within 8 days after the meeting. The proposed minutes.
Well, I think that the question that was coming up during the discussion of the minutes was wording to be added to a motion. There was words that we wanted to add to the motion, which you can't do. If you add words or add meaning or add things, then you have to rescind that motion, re-vote on it.
That's not true. The motion is not official until the minutes are adopted.
You need to review this
That's
with the
been
clerk.
case law. The minutes, any decision of a public body is not official until the actual approval of the minutes by the legislative body or the board. Then a person has so many days in court to challenge that decision.
Appeal it, yes.
You can't challenge a decision on unofficial minutes because those minutes can be corrected. The board can realize they made a mistake or it's not written properly because it's someone's interpretation of what happened. Until the board has a chance to review and see it, they say, no, that's not what we said. So at the next meeting, we go, that's not what I said in my motion. This is what the motion was supposed to say. And then those minutes then are adopted. But it has to show the original and whatever happened at that meeting. So there's that series of how it happened. And at the time the minutes get approved is when it becomes official. And I can pass it.
No, I know that, but I mean, to add or change wording, and at the request, I went through and typed from the video word for word and didn't see really any difference in the original minutes versus what was on the video. So I wouldn't have a problem approving these minutes as they were at the beginning. Because they
Murals
match.
and morals. That word is supposed to show, it's supposed to have a strikeout through it, and the corrected word is supposed to be next to it. I looked at minutes from other places, and they all have that. When there's corrections, you'll see it right up on their website. It has the corrections right on it. There's strikeout, there's the bold text to show that what was added. But, I mean, it's written right in the law. The public, body shall make corrected minutes available at the next or subsequent meeting after the correction. So this would be the meeting after the correction. The corrected minutes shall show both the original entry and the correction. You can't have multiple sets of public documents that differ.
So we just need this document with the word morale crossed off and moral, or vice versa, changed.
Whatever we agreed to at the other meeting, it was all summarized. But that should be reflected on the original minutes so that we can see, and it gives the board a chance to actually look at what they looked at and go, yep, those are the changes we discussed.
Well, I know like grammatical errors can be changed, and just like this one where we said it's not a special meeting, it's a regular meeting, those can be changed. But actual wording or adding words, when I asked Mr. Wright, he said you can't change and add words to a motion after it's already been voted on.
So if the motion is written totally wrong, somebody who was not at the meeting is transcribing it and misheard something, is totally wrong. This is the first chance this board would have, let's say, from the last meeting, to actually look at that meeting minutes from the last meeting and go, wait a minute, that's an error in the motion, we didn't say that.
Right, and I agree with that.
I didn't vote that way.
The discussion we had was, at that meeting, it was, I remember this being said, and we need to add this to the motion, which you can't do.
I think my point with the motion
Because it
is
wasn't said.
No, it wasn't.
It was my
Right.
memory that we actually had added those words just to strengthen it, that if it was changed.
We discussed that during
Right.
our discussion and finding of fact, but this other page that is in your packet, I went through the video at the request of the board, and word for stinking word, this page, it took about 2 hours to pause, rewind, pause. This is word for word of that meeting. And I did not see any difference here than the original minutes. To add words,
But it's
if we
the-
change the sign at all or in any capacity.
In any way.
or-
The discussion that night was in any way.
Right, which
Right.
was a discussion, but it was not in the motion, and that was the
But
question.
in your-
So
your
if it wasn't
summary
in the
here, it
motion,
says-
we can't do
In
it.
the yellow, it says the condition that, and then there's, quote, the brackets, words missed from minutes but on video.
Those were words that were not on the original minutes. So yes, that should probably have a strike through or grammatical change. But to add the word in any capacity or in any way, now you're changing the motion that would have to be revoked.
I'm asking what this in the brackets here is, right here.
Those were words that were
What
not in the
words?
minutes, the condition that.
But they're in your revised ones.
So, on the video, it says that we said it, but it's not in the minutes. So that was my point. We did say it as a part of the motion, so it should be written as part of the motion.
So that part, yes, could be added.
Right.
But the words in any capacity or in any way were not on the video. They were
What words
not
were missed from the minutes, but on the video?
the condition that.
Yeah, the condition
Okay.
that.
That's it.
That's it.
I don't have it. Where is it saying the condition that?
It highlighted in yellow. The condition that.
Okay, this is the words.
Yes.
Okay,
The
I
highlighted
couldn't
words.
understand, I couldn't understand what that, okay.
But to add the words in any way, in any capacity, that was not in the original motion, so those words cannot be added to the minutes after the fact.
Okay, and then it
And that was the
says-
discussion that we had, and why we couldn't get past approving these was because we couldn't add words to a motion.
But the motion continues on, right? This is all part of it, right? I will add to my motion second, with the plans, right?
Yes.
Then it talks about the signer.
This
If it's
is
not
word
altered,
for
right.
word.
So, under Roser Myers, at the bottom of that first page, if it is not altered, it would be 4048, right?
Yes.
It's not a motion.
But that's not part of the motion, that's
Yes,
a
it is.
discussion.
It is still part of the motion.
No, because you
No.
spoke.
Nope.
The motion is Butler and Walters.
There's nothing in here that
Just
says
because
that
you
it's
vote.
changing the motion.
Correct. And when you asked, so is that the motion?
This is all part of the motion, and I'm gonna say why, because there's continuing discussion right up to the vote.
It's not a motion because you had,
But it's
That's a
not a
second.
formal motion.
it's not a motion. There's
When
two
someone's
people.
clarifying it. Is that what the motion says? And if someone says, yes, then that's what the motion says.
So you have three people that says that.
If you would say, am I clarifying, did you say 5 feet? And you say yes, then I expect that to be the part of the motion.
No.
If you said, no, I didn't say that, then I'd say, well, then I would like to amend it to make sure it says 5 feet.
Correct. I
That's
think
the
the
whole
gentleman has a question.
So
That's fine.
that part where we're clarifying and I'm saying to make sure, is that included in your motion?
And he says, I will add that to the motion, and then they got it second, and then he put the words in. You can't have 4 people making a motion.
There's a procedure here. So what we did is, the motion, there was a lot of discussion on it, and we clarified, did your motion include that? Yes. Did it include that? Yes. Because there was a long discussion on the motion.
But even if you read through all the discussions and after, it doesn't say if you change it in any way, any capacity, any...
Okay, what I have a problem with is, in the printed version, which goes on the record, none of this clarification is put on there. And the clarification is, years from now, when we look back and go, it's not on there. And you can't use the meeting video, you have to use what's in there. So if you're saying that's within the motion, then the clarification afterwards should also be in the minutes. So that when looking back, you can say, here's my words. So far, I'll summarize it. If the signage allowed will be 3698, if the urban air sign is altered. If not altered, it will be 4048.
We have an attorney
The
opinion
mural-
on how the motion's done.
Square feet would be 5769. It would be per the plan stated and included in the package tonight. And I went through the whole summary of what was included and what we were voting on. And Butler says, yep. Walters, I summarized that as well, yes.
Which technically is not a second.
It might not be a second, but it's integral information included in that motion. So if you're not going to put it in the motion itself, it needs to be in the information on discussion after the motion for clarity for public record.
But it has no finding.
So that people looking back at it have that information.
But it's not binding.
It's not testimony.
It's
not testimony.
My yes vote is contingent upon that information being put in there, and that's what I said.
But it's not binding.
But that's-
Please, excuse me,
It's not binding.
I'm summarizing it. The chair is supposed to summarize a motion before it's voted on. It's right in our bylaws. So I summarized the motion. That's what I did. And we voted on it. So it's important information. It can't just be left out.
That was your.
So if you don't want to add it as part of the motion, then that component or components that are an important part that we felt important enough to clarify, and two people said yes and yes, should be in there, so that 4 years from now, if Legacy Center comes back and that mural is altered, it's very clear.
But it's not binding.
The purpose of the minutes is to make it clear and to create a good public record. Simply that.
It's not binding.
And it was stated at that meeting. It was summarized per the chair. You're supposed to summarize the motion before the vote, which I did, and that's part of that summary.
I guess for my peace of mind, I would be curious to see, I mean, does the township have an attorney that would look over and say, yep, this is rock solid, Legacy can't come back and do anything, or nope, you guys have opened up a can of worms, and if they say, yep, I'll agree to pass these. But I think this is very vague, very open, and if I'm the owner of Legacy, I'd be coming in and saying, hey, guess what, I can change my sign.
Right now, to the minutes are approved, they're still changing their signs.
So if we're not gonna vote on this to approve these today, I would say we should have our township attorney or clerk or somebody look it over, just to have another outside opinion say, yep, that's binding, I'll eat crow and say you're right, pass it, move on. But
It's not about eating crow, and we have a budget for these type of things. So if the chair would like to, if we had, $1,700 left last year, but there's a budget to get attorney opinions and to have the chair ask the attorney about these things, and the board ask questions. So there is a budget for, for asking this. But the point is, when someone summarizes it, whoever it may be, and they felt important enough to say, okay, just to clarify, this is what we're voting on, and then we vote on it, and that information isn't portrayed in the minutes in the way that
But
the member feels is strong enough.
is the summary any different in any manner, shape, or form than what the motion was?
That's the way she heard it.
I don't see anything that would say that it isn't. I mean, it talks of size, and I think the sizes are correct. talks of our findings of fact. Variance is based on the uniqueness of the site. I mean, we captured the change to the motion. You know, that is captured in our minutes.
I think my concern was that change versus altered. I was trying to make clear at that meeting, and we were all at that meeting, that the change meant change in any way, and that's what we were trying to reflect in that discussion. Someone could say, well, it still says urban air. It didn't change. The word was if it was altered. If it was changed in any way, altered from its original format. And so the words I had put down there, it was not just change, it was altered. And so I was just trying to make clear for history's sake, if someone.
But isn't that semantical?
Huh?
Altered and change, isn't that semantical at some
I
point?
don't know, if like someone says, well, it says the same name, it hasn't changed. The name hasn't changed.
Well, the
But
words
if
that
you
we,
altered the artwork,
well, the words that was discussed, that great English. The words that were discussed to add was in any way, in any capacity.
At our
And
last
that
meeting.
was not, yeah, and that was not part of the original motion.
Correct.
So to add those words to a
Right.
motion, you have to rescind that motion, you have to revote.
right, no, I agree with what you're saying there. What I was trying to say, and I didn't have the audio available at the time, because it wasn't available yet. You got it. From the.
Yeah, I asked for it.
You got it, and I
Yeah.
asked for a copy. I didn't get, and I didn't get a copy of it. I don't disagree with what you have here. I guess my point is that's what I remember, and my memory was just saying if it was changed in any way, which it comes off as saying if it was altered.
In my mind, alter and change, semantical.
If you're all comfortable with it, that's fine.
I am. That's why I made the motion to
Yep.
approve.
That's why I support it. I only rescinded so we could move on with the meeting.
Yes. So our next meeting will approve.
Approve them.
So as a part of our next meeting, we can approve them, or?
Yep.
But in terms of what this says, the Open Meetings Act, and the minutes. I don't read this any other way. I can't, as much as some people would like to say we've done it that way for so long, other communities do it right. Once those minutes are created, the proposed minutes, we make changes at the following meeting.
I don't disagree with that at all.
The final version shows the original and the changes. That's what it says. Right there. And here's the law printed.
Shows an interesting.
That is the Michigan statute.
Let me look through this.
What's the topic for the next meeting?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, wait, one more minute.
This is
In Attorney General's Open Meetings Handbook, when it says when must the meeting be, minutes be approved, it says at the board's next meeting, corrected minutes must show both the original entry and the correction. For example, using a strike-through word processing feature. That's right there.
I'm gonna do a little research on other minutes, other communities.
Is that something that's in our bylaws spelled out pretty clear, or?
No, it's a state statute.
This is state law,
It's a state statute.
right, which supersedes.
Act 267 of 1976.
You know, and the problem is, if
If we've been doing it wrong, then we need to change.
Right, it's a simple thing, and
I'm
it
not
makes
sure.
sense as to why we would do it that way. I do need that copy back.
Okay. I can pull it down.
I can email it to you.
Nope, I got it. I'll just say WW. Got it. Any other,
And just the reason I think it's important is it's what I've been told. It's what I've been trained for. And it's all part of the Open Meetings Act. And if we're doing it wrong, we're violating the act. If we're doing it wrong after we've been told we've been doing it wrong, it becomes intentional. And there's penalties for doing that, and I don't want to put this board
no, we certainly don't want to be in that position.
in that.
No, nobody wants to do that.
And if there's an opinion from an attorney and all that that's written down that says that this interpretation is totally wrong, then I would be at ease that we're doing it right. But I've been told point blank we're doing it wrong. So I can't in good conscience vote on it for that very reason. It's not that I don't want to.
Fair enough. Do a little research, we'll go back to it. Any other comments?
I comment about the agenda for this meeting. I got an email that basically said the agenda wasn't done. I asked for the meeting minutes after the last meeting. I noticed that Mr. Bailey had a copy of the minutes. You got them
I
right
got
away?
the video from, what I'm assuming,
Right, but there was minutes in your box? Did you not get minutes?
there was a envelope with the video and, oh, Bill dropped it off? Yeah. So they came from Bill.
Okay, yeah, so I had asked for a copy of the minutes as the chair because I needed the minutes to talk to the planner about the issues that we had identified with that measurements, so that I could write the planner, what our concerns was. And I couldn't get a copy of the minutes, but Mr. Bailey got a copy of the minutes right away after the meeting. And I felt like my job was hindered with that. And I was told the minutes would not be available to me until a week after the fact, but the minutes had already been created and handed to Mr. Bailey. So I don't understand why, when I needed the minutes and they were there and passed out to other members of this board, why the board chair wouldn't get a copy. And that's why I asked for a copy of them. It doesn't really add up. And then I got the email about there wouldn't be an agenda for tonight and I would have to do the agenda. Well, it's hard to do the agenda if I haven't been provided the documents.
They're in your.
I don't have the meeting packet information. I don't know what applicants have come forward. So this whole process has got to be fixed so that we understand who does the agenda and puts the meeting packets together. It's not about respect, it's about process. We all want what's best for this community, and we're all supposed to be working together here. And if the chair is supposed to be putting stuff together, the chair needs the information to do it. So if you're going to be putting the agenda together, you're going to need that information.
Understood. And I will have conversations about that.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.